And we're still with our very special coverage as to the development where Israeli airstrikes are intensively targeting the southern suburbs of Beirut. At least 4 strikes have hit the area, sending plumes of smoke into the sky just minutes after Israel issued an evacuation order. In this special coverage, we explore the escalation, marking a significant development in the ongoing tensions as the situation in Lebanon intensifies.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's spokesperson has confirmed that a drone was launched towards Netanyahu's residence in the offices area. Israeli media reports indicate that the Prime Minister's office is withholding details about Netanyahu's current location following an explosion caused by the drone. The spokesperson assured that Netanyahu was not present at the time and that there were no reported casualties. Earlier, Israeli authorities stated that the drone originated from Lebanon and struck a building, while 2 additional drones that entered Israeli airspace were successfully intercepted. Lebanese national media has reported that Israeli airstrikes struck the town of Aita al-Shab in Bint Jbeil district in southern Lebanon. Israeli warplanes also raided the town of Taiba in Marjayoun in the south, as well as raiding the Al-Umara neighborhood in Shweifat in southeast of Beirut. That came amidst intensive drone fights in the skies of Tyre and its surroundings, with another raid targeting a house in Zebqin. At least 4 Israeli strikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs in this afternoon. An Israeli occupation military spokesperson issued warning on social media platform X for 2 locations in the area. Plumes of smokes rising over the area less than an hour after the Israeli military issued an evacuation order. Tensions on the Lebanese-Israeli border have surged, with escalating attacks causing civilian casualties and destruction. The details.
Tensions on the Israel-Lebanon border have sharply intensified as Israeli forces escalated their aggression with drone strikes, rocket fire, and airstrikes on Lebanese towns, resulting in civilian casualties and widespread destruction. According to an Israeli military spokesperson, 3 drones reportedly entered Israeli airspace from Lebanon, 2 of which were intercepted, while the 3rd struck a building in Caesarea. This incident follows Israeli bombardments that had been carried out earlier in Lebanon. In retaliation, Hezbollah launched a rocket from southern Lebanon, targeting areas near Haifa, causing damage in civilian areas. Sirens blared in Kiryat and Haifa as the tension spread further across northern Israel. Israeli reports also noted that a drone targeted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's private residence in Caesarea. Though Israeli media denied his presence at the time of the attack, footage showed heavy police deployment around the area, and his office refrained from confirming his location. In response to Hezbollah's retaliation, Israel carried out airstrikes in northern Beirut, hitting residential areas in Janea and killing at least 2 civilians, according to Lebanon's health ministry. These attacks underscore the ongoing toll on civilians in Lebanon as Israeli operations escalate. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Hamas claimed responsibility for an attack on Israeli forces near the Jabalia camp, which led to further violent exchanges and an increase in Palestinian casualties from Israeli shelling in Maghazi camp. Regional powers have responded to Israel's expanding operation. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi issued a stern warning, holding all those complicit with Israel's aggressive actions accountable. U.S. President Joe Biden acknowledged his awareness of Israel's military plan, but remained vague on the details, further complicating the volatile situation. The regional impact of these escalating hostilities demands urgent diplomatic efforts to prevent further destruction.
Well, welcome back, and for further analysis on the current situation, we are joined from Beirut by the strategic expert Brigadier General Saeed Al-Quzah. Good evening to you, sir. Welcome to QNews.
Welcome. Good evening.
Right. Do you think Netanyahu will escalate the aggression against Gaza and Lebanon in this upcoming period following the targeting of his home in Caesarea?
Good evening. Good evening to you and to your audience. Yes, the Israeli enemy will escalate, and they are moving forward in their war against Lebanon, Gaza, and all the axis, including Iran axis in the region. In an attempt to respond to Iran's targeting with missiles a while ago. The Israeli operations will continue in Lebanon, the airstrike will continue, and the trial for a ground offensive will also continue. The Israeli army every day tries to make progress in the borders, in the southern villages on the southern borders of Lebanon. The army destroys these villages and Beqa areas. It repeated the targeting of the southern district by a series of very hostile strikes. This morning, the army targeted Juli area, which is in the northern district of Beirut, 20 kilometers far from Beirut, to target Hezbollah figure he was passing by with his wife and managed to kill them. Netanyahu never stopped before achieving his war goals that were announced either in Lebanon or in Gaza or in the whole region.
From your point of view,
Saidi,
has Israel returned to target the Lebanese capital, or why did Israel return to target the Lebanese capital, Beirut, after reports of a halt to these attacks by order of the U.S. administration, and how will that reflect on the U.S.-Israel strategic relations?
There was an attempt from the U.S. administration to stop Israel from targeting the southern district of the capital or any other targets inside the capital, Beirut. However, today we have witnessed the strikes returning to the southern district, which is the place of Hezbollah. The enemy will never be halted from targeting any goal that they consider legitimate for them. They will never stop trying to destroy these targets either in the southern district or in Beirut or any other place in Lebanon. Of course, wants to respond to the demands of the U.S. administration. However, they have their own interests and what they call their own security. So liquidating the enemies, hitting their centers, striking the immunity warehouses and their logistics centers is a priority for them. So these limited actions in the southern district of Beirut will never upset a lot the United States. What may upset the United States is that these targets would exceed the scope of the southern district, which is the greater Beirut and the areas that are not under Hezbollah's control, because we know that there are many places in Lebanon that are not under the control of Hezbollah, and they are even considered to be enemies of Hezbollah. That's why the United States does not want the targeting of Beirut as a capital, but they would not object or oppose to targeting anything that may pose a danger for Israel.
How do you view Hezbollah's decision to enter a new phase of attacks on Israel? Again, how do you view Hezbollah's decision to enter a new phase of attacks on Israel?
Yes, Hezbollah tries from a very long time to cause harm inside Israel. We're sending a drone today to the residency of the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was a very big leap, of course, under the permission of Iran and with Iranian decision, because there are many rumors that everyone is repeating that after the killing of Mr. Nasrallah, the previous Secretary General of Hezbollah, Iran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard directly manage Hezbollah at the political and military level, because there is no authority and there are no political leaders for Hezbollah except for the Deputy Secretary General, Sheikh Naim. So what Hezbollah did today is, with Iran's permission, it's an explicit threat against Netanyahu, trying to create a kind of terror balance between them and the Israeli enemy. It's also a message before the targeting or before the Israeli response that is possible against Iran, to say that we are capable of reaching your own house.
Right. That was strategic expert Brigadier General Saeed Al-Quzah. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us and for joining us here on QNews and for your valuable insights. And back to our episode and coverage, and Israel has announced that Hezbollah fired more than 150 rockets and several drones into northern Israel. Accordingly, the Israeli occupation forces urged residents of the coastal areas, Kiryat, Western Galilee and Accra, to stay close to shelters and fortified areas. Hezbollah rocket fire resulted in killing one person and wounding 14 others. Smoke has risen over the border region between Lebanon and Israel. It was not immediately clear exactly where the smoke was coming from around the western part of the shared border and what had caused it. Lebanon's health ministry has said that at least 2 people were killed in an Israeli strike near Junay, north of Beirut. In the first strike on the area, the health ministry said that an Israeli occupation raid hit a car in Junay, with Lebanese state media saying that the attack occurred on a key highway linking the capital to the country's north. The details. Israel's military operation in Gaza and Lebanon has intensified following the assassination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, with Prime Minister Netanyahu vowing to continue operations despite rising regional tensions.
Israel's military campaign in Gaza and Lebanon has sharply intensified in the wake of the assassination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar during a targeted Israeli operation in Gaza, which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed as a significant milestone in the fight against Hamas. Despite this, Netanyahu stressed that military operations would continue unabated in both Gaza and Lebanon, signaling that Israel's strategic objectives have yet to be fulfilled. In response, Hamas and Hezbollah reaffirmed their commitment to resist what they describe as ongoing Israeli aggression. While Israel has concentrated its operations in Gaza on eliminating key figures, it has also significantly escalated its military actions in Lebanon. Airstrikes and artillery bombardments in southern Lebanon have caused substantial casualties, with many civilians caught in the violence. The relentless air raids have displaced thousands, leaving widespread destruction of vital infrastructure in their wake. The conflict has drawn in broader regional players, most notably Iran, which reaffirmed its support for Hamas and Hezbollah, stating that Sinwar's death would only strengthen their spirit of resistance. Despite growing international pressure, including appeals from Western nations such as the US for a ceasefire, Israel has rejected mediation efforts. It maintains that military action will continue until all detainees are released and its security objectives are met. With diplomatic solutions stalling, tensions remain high, and regional powers like Egypt are warning that the conflict risks escalating into a broader Middle Eastern crisis.
Right, and for further analysis on the current situation, we are joined from Beirut by the writer and political researcher Iman Shweikh. Welcome to QNews.
Welcome to you and to your audience.
So, how do you see the timing of the targeting of Netanyahu's home in Caesarea?
Naturally, Iran tries today to use all the cards to deter Israel and not to lose the card of Hezbollah in Lebanon after the mega losses that they incurred. And after the losses incurred by Hamas, represented in the killing of Yahya Sinwar, the political and military leader of Hamas. That's why Iran now is trying to use some cards that it kept Hezbollah for a year not using them, even if they have used them before September 17th, the actual date of the war between Israel and Hezbollah. Maybe if they kept preventing them, maybe things wouldn't have reached this limit. But the goal of Iran is an all-out regional war in the Middle East and not to lose the negotiations regarding the nuclear file with the United Nations and with the other states. That's why it tried to keep its strongest arm in the region, which is Hezbollah. But when Hezbollah dragged Israel and when things went out of control and went out of these rules, Iran started to use these cards, starting from Benjamin operation a few days ago that resulted in the killing of 4 Israeli soldiers, in addition to several injured people, in addition to the operation of assassinating Netanyahu that didn't succeed, as if it is a warning message to Israel that moving forward and targeting civilians and the policy of the burnt land and the destruction of villages, this will all lead to a further escalation by Hezbollah, but eventually, and Iran is the one who says the final decision regarding the operations and the used weapons, and many concessions should be made for the settlement that is expected. This depends on what takes place in the secret channels between Washington and Tehran, and if there's an actual agreement on limiting these operations and reducing them to a certain level, which we have witnessed over the past few days when there was a kind of calmness in most of the Lebanese territories. Of course, there was some targeting of some villages, but compared to the previous days, it's somehow a limited escalation. And now, and today, the severity of this confrontation is increasing in the district with many strikes after the attempted assassination of Netanyahu in Syria.
Now, this attempt, or the Benjamin Netanyahu's house attempt, that came after the assassination of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. So, do you think the assassination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar would save Netanyahu from accountability within his country?
I believe that this is right. It's a great achievement for Netanyahu, but it was preceded by other achievements that are more important than this, what happened on the major explosion on September 17th. It's a historic, unprecedented operation. It saved Netanyahu massively inside Israel and before the international community and before the Democratic and Republican administrations. It was followed by another achievement that Israel considers it the most important, which is the assassination of the most important leader in the Axis, who is the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Mr. Hassan Nasrallah. That's why I believe that the assassination of Sinwar would not be the savior of Netanyahu, because he increased his popularity inside Israel and he gained large endorsement from the Israelis to conduct a war, not only a limited operation in the south. There's a great Israeli support to Netanyahu to change the whole reality in the north, not only in the south of Lebanon, but all over Lebanon, and to exclude Hezbollah from the political Lebanese equation and from the regional equation, since the party became a very difficult figure or impossible figure in the regional equations before the assassination of the Secretary General and the frontline leaders. So the popularity was gained again on September 17th. And it was even restored before when he assassinated the most important leaders in Hezbollah and eliminating all the military power and targeting the weapons warehouses, while Hezbollah only responded with very limited strikes within the policy of strategic patience followed by Iran, through which it didn't want more involvement of Hezbollah in this war, but the Lebanese people paid the price, because since October 8th and until today, we have more than 2,000 Lebanese martyrs. Most of them are civilians, except for the Hezbollah-affiliated people. But the bigger bill was incurred by the Lebanese people. But Hezbollah is humiliated today when they are in the shelters and in the areas that are very terrifying. Creates a division that would lead to a civil war at the end of the day. Israel kept trying to spread division by sending warnings.
The credibility of world bodies, particularly the Security Council, is at stake. So do you think the Security Council this time would finally take an action to stop the escalating aggression in Gaza and Lebanon?
It might happen. However, I do not believe that the experience of Gaza would send a positive omen for us, or a good omen for us, because we have been listening to and watching lots of statements issued by the Security Council and the endless sessions and the international and UN agencies and Secretary General of the United Nations. But all of these statements and condemnations and declarations were only ink on papers, so they were merely a propaganda. Hence, today, there is an Israeli movement to stop the work or the operations of UNIFIL that was mandated in 1978 to create an area that is free from the military operations and to maintain the security of Lebanon and Israel equally. So how can we discuss international resolutions while we are seeing almost an agreement? Because today we listened to the responsible for the foreign policy of the European
Yes.
Union when he talked about
Yes.
the possibility of stopping the international forces, which gives an indication of
Yes.
lots of danger.
Yes, your point.
Naam,
Your
and-
point here is very clear, and our time is out, and I have to end it here. That was the writer and political researcher Iman Shweikh. Thank you so much for your valuable analysis here. And I guess that brings us to the end of our special coverage on the escalating tensions in Lebanon. Remember to stay updated by following QNews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and many thanks for watching.